A little intro, if that's okay for everybody.
Yeah, that's cool.
Ever since Nintendo made the very conscious choice to sell the Nintendo Entertainment System in the boys section of retailers in the 1980s, video games have been perceived by those who play them, those who make them, and those who've just heard of them as a boys' hobby. According to the IGDA, about 76% of those working in the video game industry are men. Game studios make very clear design and marketing decisions that indicate they want boys to buy their games and not girls. DICE's project lead told programmer Emadine Coguette that women were excluded from Battlefield 1 as playable characters because, quote, boys wouldn't find it believable, end quote. Even the word gamer elicits a very distinct visual of a young white male wearing a headset screaming at his Xbox 360. This needs to change. Games are increasingly becoming a more inclusive and diverse medium, both in terms of games themselves, those who make them, and those who play them. In fact, according to the Pew Research Center, the Electronic Software Association, who runs E3, and several other reputable researchers, a little over 48% of everyone who plays games are women, as of 2015. This is in no small part a result of the rise of indie games and the accessibility of game development tools and online critiques of the medium by channels like Feminist Frequency. Just this past week, Dishonored developers told the press that the reason they include Emily Caldwin as a playable character in Dishonored 2 was because they watched Anita Sarkeesian's take on Dishonored 1's lack of female representation. That's a multi-million-dollar game that made a very impactful design decision based on a feminist critique of their first game. Millions of dollars, Dana. Millions of dollars.
More than I make.
There's hope, and it comes from starting dialogues and understanding different perspectives I will never have as a white man. So to help, I'm joined by three guests and very good friends of mine, Celine Telford Travers, Dana Duckers, and Yelena Bulik. Thank you so much for joining us. What was your first experience with games? I'll start with you, Celine.
Sure, okay. This is actually kind of a weird question for me because I don't really remember starting with games. I was on computers from like a very young age because my parents both worked heavily with computers in the 80s. Dating myself. So Commodore 64, like Maniac Mansion, Lemmings, all of the like really not Kid Icarus. There was a bunch of like platformers that were really common back then. I started playing with, and then we got a Sega Genesis probably when I was about 10 or 11, and that was my foray into console gaming. But computer games were more my thing throughout most of.
You've been playing games a long time.
Long time. Yeah.
How about you, Dana? What was your first experience with games?
I can't remember what my first experience was, because I remember getting the Sega Genesis again with my brother, and I played the Disney Aladdin game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But then I also remember playing Risk, and this is the one I bring up the most when I talk about why I got into game design, because me and my brother would play Risk, and I was maybe like 6 or 7 years old, so it was a little bit much for me. And so me and my brother rewrote the instructions to make it a lot more simpler and a lot more fun. And we like redesigned the game. So that was kind of cool for me.
You were designing at 7.
Yes. And I still, to this day, do not know how to play Risk. And I don't remember what I changed when I was a kid. But
You don't need to, you made your own.
Exactly.
Yeah. I won't play the Xena version.
Yeah. Please publish it.
It's probably like move your icon. Yeah, you take over that whole layout. Like that was probably what it was. But yeah, other than that, I think it started with either Risk and then again with those ones like Yoshi's Island on Nintendo. Those were so good. I freaking played that so much. Anyways.
You know the sound Yoshi is like, hey.
Yeah.
I had that ingrained into my brain.
I have the tongue one, like
Yeah,
right.
Yelena, what was your first experience with games?
I think it was when I first moved into the house that my parents live at now, and they got me a babysitter, and she had an N64, and so all the kids that she babysat would all go into her basement, turn up that N64, and we would play Mario Kart, which I was super bad at, but I enjoyed it. Yeah,
And
it was great.
GoldenEye 007, that was a big one on the 64 too, I think.
And
GoldenEye probably would have been a bit not babysitter friendly.
Yeah, I was in college.
that's also true. And then I did play a bit with the PC. Like, do you guys remember that space, like, what was it, pinball game?
3D Space Pinball?
Yes.
Windows Vista?
Yes. Yeah, my eyesight started to deteriorate because of that game. I will not lie about that. Yeah.
Needless to say, you've all been playing games for quite a while. When was the first time you encountered resistance or pushback to you playing games, either in person or online, because you were a woman? I'll start with you.
Well, because I grew up in Sudbury, which is like about the size of Brantford in terms of size, comics and games sort of ended up in the same spaces a lot of the time. So I think for me, it was going into the comic book / game shop and encountering a bunch of dudes playing Warhammer. I don't know if they're all assholes, but primarily they have been when I've encountered them, because they're just like extremely rude and like closed off. And it was very weird for like a 16-year-old to be like, why are these 30-year-old men also hostile? No apparent reason. So that's like the most memorable one I can think of, off the top of my head for sure.
How about you, Zena?
Mine was when I played Call of Duty Black Ops. So this was actually my first intro into online gaming, because I'd never done it before, and a friend of mine at the time, her father was really heavily into it, so he had one of those names like Flaming Guitar or something like that. And so we used his account, and he had the headset, the whole getup, the Xbox controller, everything. And I started playing, and I don't know, I'm assuming it was through the voice, but I did say, like, I'm new at this, go easy on me, this is going to be fun. And just within probably the first minute of me saying that, it was just nothing but slurs, like attacking me on, probably calling me fat, saying that I was anorexic, like it was just back and forth, and I started crying. And I took the headset off, and my friend was like, oh, we can turn the mic off, like she was kind of shook a little too from that. And I was just kind of like, no, like, I don't want to play this anymore. Like, I don't want to play with these people. I don't want to enjoy this game with them when they're so cruel and mean towards me for not doing anything. So that was pretty big for me, and I have not touched online games since then. But I have, within the first year, been going on to, like, playing Overwatch and stuff. That's been, I'm getting slowly into that, but
It
yeah.
pushed you away from it for a long time.
Oh, yeah, for a long time.
From online gaming or gaming in general?
Online in general. Like, I used to, you can call this online gaming, but you guys heard of Neopets?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I thrived off of that for a long time. And again, I can't remember if you can actually contact people on that or anything like that. So that was online,
Yeah.
but it was still online. And I actually grouped that with those online games and that experience. So when I would play Neopets, I almost was like afraid that people could contact me and would contact me in a negative way.
Right.
And it was just, it kind of brought back up those memories of that, and that's why I kind of stayed away from it. So yeah, that's my story. That's where I've been.
Oh, jeez, that's
How about you,
it's kind of hard for me to say, because like nobody ever directly told me, like I never got that direct message of like, oh, games are just for girls, but it was like kind of subtle, because like I remember when my uncle got my brother a PS3, and he only asked my brother about the PS3, and then he ended up getting my brother the Xbox 360 as well, and he never asked me about it. He was only communicating with my brother about it. And I don't know, just like around that time, that's where I started thinking, like, maybe that's not my kind of culture kind of thing, Like, I have no idea when I got the notion, like, stuck onto me that games might not necessarily be for girls, but it just kind of happened. And I didn't realize until, like, Assassin's Creed 3 came out that I actually was a gamer. Like, I always, like again, like, that connotation of, like, oh, gamers is just a guy term, right? Like, even though I've been playing, like, on Nintendo system since I was, like, 6 years old, I didn't consider myself part of that gamer culture, so I guess it's always been with me in a way, but not.
Sort of
It's
like
weird.
subtly implied by your uncle not asking you about games.
Yeah, like, kind of that, yeah. And just, like, I remember also my older cousins would only talk to my brother about video games as well. And I didn't really, like, I wasn't really interested in that at the time, but looking back at it, I'm like, maybe that's where I got the idea from.
So that was the first time you encountered resistance. Have there been any other times since that really stick out for you of being pushed out or really just told you're not meant to play games because you're a woman? I'll start with you on this time.
No, not really. When I got into gaming, my brother, like, he didn't really have a reaction to it, because, like, most of the gaming that I saw, like, came from my brother. And, like, he didn't really have a reaction, like, a negative reaction to it. He was actually kind of supportive about it. He's like, you're getting into games, cool. And he tried to get me into first-person shooters, but that just wasn't my kind of game. Like, not even just the online, like even just local multiplayer, I couldn't really get into it. So
Is
yeah.
it the like skill difference because your brother been playing it a while? Or...
It could have been that, but I mean, like, cause like, we also we managed to get an original Xbox at a garage sale at one point, and that had the original Halo on it, and I was actually better than him on that game. But it's just that first person shooters just aren't my genre. Like I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that, oh, I'm a girl, I can't play a first person shooter. It was just more of like, this is not my kind of game.
Did you ever encounter any resistance at school if people found out, or with your other friends?
No, not really. No. Like, I mean, especially when the Nintendo DS Lite came out, I asked my parents for it for Christmas, and instead of getting the DS Lite, I ended up getting a Game Boy Advance SP.
Same thing.
Yeah, right? But and I remember bringing it to school, and I got picked on, not because I was a girl playing a game, but because I had that system when everybody else was on the DS. So,
Oh.
yeah.
How about you, Dan? Any times that really stick out to you?
Actually, okay, so there's a lot of times, and I still face it today, but the biggest one that I stick out, which is actually involves my family. To any family members, I love you, and this is in no way against you, but it's just a simple act of telling people that I'm in game design. And it's big at family functions, and they'll ask me like, oh, Dana, what are you doing with your life right now? And I'll be like, well, threw this year out, but I'm in game design. And so they automatically, their reaction is, oh, really? Like, what? And it's just, they expect me to maybe go into nursing or to go into fashion or something like that. And those are stereotypically female-oriented programs. And it's like, no, like, I'm going to game design and I'm going to do this. And then I have that awkward conversation where they don't really know how to talk to me about it. And I've had my cousins who are into gaming too, and they don't know how to talk to me either. I'm like, have you heard about the new Call of Duty game? That's pretty cool, World War II. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they get some light into it. And it's like, I really want to stop that, especially because like it shouldn't be weird for a female to say, like, I'm in game design, or I'm in the gaming industry, or I make video games, or I make board games. Like, it shouldn't be weird for that, but it still is, and I face that, and that's something that sticks out to me. And I hope that one day I can actually talk to my family and be like, yeah, so I did this, and they'll be like, oh, that's so awesome, I played that last week, or something like that. That's what I want with my family. That'd be pretty cool.
You
that's
made a
pretty
really
dope.
killer Tim's Training card games.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn, yeah. Patented. I'm pretty
Jeez.
excited about that.
That's actually really weird because, like, I would have expected that kind of reaction out of my family when they first found out that I was going into game design. But the fact was that they were actually pretty cool with it, which I was surprised with. But I think part of the reason why was because most of my family is like into, like, at least into computers. And so, like, I guess that's something that they could relate to, so they didn't really find it weird to talk to me about it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think I had the same
Yeah.
because my first degree was in theology, and the question was always, well, what are you going to do with that? And I'm like, I don't know, whatever I want. Like, it's so broad, you could do anything, really. And I ended up working at universities. So now when I say game design, it's pretty obvious what you do with that. Like, it's a fairly straightforward career path type job. Like, university degree to job type thing.
Mhm.
Whether it actually pans out in a job is a completely different story, but at least they could grasp the idea that this is something that could potentially pay you money in the future.
I think, don't get me wrong, like, my dad is, he's a computer technician,
Mhm.
and I've been raised, like, seeing inside of a computer. I don't know how to do anything with it, but
Yeah.
I've seen it, so there's both points. But, and with that, between that and my brother, they've been a welcoming force, and, like, my mom's very on board with everything, too. And it's more, like, distant, like, when I go to, like, family functions, stuff like that. But, yeah, my brother was definitely the person who got me into games. So, yay, Andrew.
Are they both older siblings for you guys?
My brother is younger than me, 2 years younger.
Oh, okay.
My brother's older.
Yeah, I'm the oldest, so I was wondering if that was maybe skewing things.
Oh, okay.
So you said you've been playing games since the 80s,
Oh,
right? So,
Yeah, no, that's okay.
so
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot of experiences because, especially in the time you've been playing games, it's changed a lot. I think for the
Yeah.
become better, not where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think so. There was actually a fairly popular Twitter thread where people were like, well, equality has been in games, like, it's erasing to say that they've never been equal. But aside from a couple of really exceptional women like Brenda Romero and
Who designed the Centipede? Is that it? Centipede was designed by a woman. It was the first
Oh, yeah.
mm,
huge arcade. It was the first huge video game designed by a woman.
Yeah. And then I mean, there's also the issue of like tons and tons of women.
Brenda Romero did Doom, didn't she?
Brenda Romero's a big one, and then there's a couple like Liz England is a fairly big name. I think Jennifer Hepler is a fairly big name, but that could be because she was treated so poorly due to the whole Mass Effect thing. The Mass Effect effect with the, and she wrote a book about it actually, which.
Was the first Mass Effect?
No, from the perspective of being a female game developer who was basically like thrown under the bus as like a scapegoat for all of the problems that went wrong with game development.
Yeah.
Is that the girl from Mass Effect Andromeda?
Oh no, that's probably a different. I think she was gone from BioWare before Andromeda went into development.
Well, it didn't matter. She didn't work there. She got all the abuse.
Yeah, well, that's probably true too. So I mean, for me, I think the big one is probably World of Warcraft. Like I mentioned, missing out on like PS3, PS4 console war section because I was mostly playing World of Warcraft at that point in time, and the biggest thing there was the idea. Well, the one idea that like women were naturally healers because they wanted to like nurture their tanks or whatever, which was a very weird. We used to joke about because my guild was mostly women and like queer folk and stuff like that. We would joke about like, are we breastfeeding them? Like, what is going on here? What is the idea that this is coming from? Like, we want to be mothers, so we surrogate the mother tanks, or like it was very weird. And I was a tank actually, and then I did the same thing in Overwatch. Everyone's like, with my husband, and they're like, oh, so you're like mercy main or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm diva, and they're like, she's like in the front doing stuff. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
They scratch their heads like, wow,
Yeah.
why?
And they're like, oh, because she's a girl gamer and you're a girl gamer, right? And I'm like, well, no, I actually just wanted to like blow tons of people up.
That term so much.
Yeah.
Girl gamer?
Just like the fact that you have to separate gamer and then there's girl gamer.
Yeah. Or like
no.
it's like gay marriage. It's like, well, it's just marriage though.
Yeah,
Like-
right?
I
Um,
never, ever thought about that till just now.
yeah. Or the term white trash is a big one too that we think like we don't really think about that much. It's like you say white trash because you just assume that everyone else is already trash. Boom.
Perspectives.
Headshot.
Perspectives, you know?
And so aside from the women healer thing, which I think is more general than just Warcraft was especially bad for like women just get stuff for free because they're women. And like, yeah, people would be like, here's 100 gold for whatever reason. But like the dudes were the ones stupid enough to do that in the first place. If they expected something out of it, I wasn't like, how was I supposed to know that there was some sort of weird exchange of like sexy pictures for the gold that they gave me or whatever, when they're just like, I really like you, here's some gold. I'm like, oh cool, thanks. I'm gonna buy this now I wanted. So there was this idea that a lot of women just like had raid spots or whatever because they were women and like the guys in the guild were just letting them on. But again, that didn't work out so much for me in World of Warcraft because most of my guild was like adults and married people and like gay people. So it wasn't, lots and lots of women ended up gravitating, I think, towards it because of that atmosphere.
So we found each other in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and actually LiveJournal played a big part in it. And I think because LiveJournal was so heavily like female based, the same way Tumblr is now, that probably also skewed it a little bit. It was mostly women on LiveJournal who found each other and then made a guild, and then yeah, sometimes we'd bring significant others or like not douchey dudes in, but for the most part it was women.
Non-douchey dudes.
Yeah, you would totally try if I still played World
I'll
of
play
Warcraft.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, no. it's probably for the best.
How are you taking this?
Yeah.
This is heavy, man. Do you feel there's adequate representation of women in video games?
Okay.
No, although I do acknowledge that at least a significant, like, not a huge, but like at least somebody's trying to change that. Like, for example, Dishonored 2, there's a lot of first-person shooters that have now introduced playable female characters.
Call of Duty. This is
Yeah.
the first big one with Ghosts, and Battlefield still won't, and it blows my mind.
Yeah. With that thing that you mentioned about Battlefield 1, how like World War I, women, not believable. I will argue that because there were female soldiers
There were.
in World War
In
I.
Russia, in Libya? Wait, I don't want to say that for sure, but I definitely know that.
Yeah.
The most decorated soldier is a woman from World War I. Like,
Yeah.
And the funny part is, they talk about her in the campaign, but you cannot play as her, as any woman in the multiplayer. So Yelena's
Okay.
gone, she's peaced out.
Yelena, come back.
Yelena, come back. So
Yeah.
Yelena, you would say there is not adequate representation of women in games, but we're getting there.
yeah, we are working towards it, and that is making me happy. But we need to push faster, is what I think.
Dana, what do you think?
I'm kind of in the same stance as Yana, just because I've seen I had not played Dishonored or Dishonored 2, but I saw the trailer for Dishonored 2, and I was like, woo! Like, do it!
Yeah.
Yes!
Yeah.
And I want
She
to
was
play
the
it.
default, because you could play
It
through the
was
whole
crazy.
game as either Corvo or Emily, and they announced the game with Emily.
Yeah.
She was
Like, she-
she
yeah.
was the reveal trailer. All of the gameplay demos were with Emily.
I didn't even know you could play as Corvo. What?
There you go. See? And I think that's so cool because in every game where there's an option, the male is always the default.
Yeah.
For Assassin's Creed Syndicate, when you start the game up, you can switch between the twins whenever you want, but it starts you as Jacob, and it puts you out into London and you're Jacob because Jacob's the default.
Right. I don't like that a lot of these game trailers that come out are just like a lot of, it'll be like some like black and you'll hear some like rumbling and then you hear like this rugged male voice just being like, they
War.
said we no
War never changes.
yeah, like they said we could get there and like dun, 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 dun. And then it shows like a footstep in rainy water and then like goes to like but they were wrong and then it goes into like zombies or aliens or some shit like that. Like
And
it's
then white dude.
yeah, and then one girl being like, "What do we do?" And then the girl like runs away, and it's just like, how about she gets a gun and we can like kill people with it? And that's actually no killing kids. Sorry, that was really bad. Don't include that. but like, but you know, like you want to be able to play that person instead of her just being like that side one that's there to push the main, more important male character along the storyline, and that's something that they are changing, definitely with these playable female characters, and even just having the female characters in the games that aren't wearing next to nothing. I think that was a big step too, when they had more females that were more rugged and more clothed, and that was pretty big. For me to
Emily's
see that.
like cloaked, she's like stealthy, she's ready to go.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
they do not accentuate her boobs, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
oh, like okay, for people who aren't aware of this for whatever reason, when you have armor plates that purposely
Oh my God,
are shaped for
yes.
your boobs,
Yes.
it hurts to get hit because like okay, that
It's
part
like
that
put a
splits your
crossbow
boobs,
right here.
like if you get hit,
It's a
that's
weak
hitting your
spot.
solar plexus, and that could actually potentially hit your like break your rib cage if you're hit hard enough.
There's
I
a
would
really
like to
good there's a really good Gamma Sutra article about how to design female armor in games, because if you look at Skyrim and you look at Medal of Honor and Monster Hunter, anytime there's a breastplate where there's like specific boob plates, and they went through the details behind this, if someone puts a sword at your breastplate, having it like that actually guides the sword to the center of your
Yeah.
chest,
Right.
where all of your vital organs are. So the actual way you design armor is a flat piece of really strong metal. But for male designers, that's not sexy. And they specifically design armor for the women to be sexy, whereas the men get a normal, actually protecting.
And I hate when people use like female mages as like an excuse, like oh they got magic, they can defend themselves, it's fine, and give them like sexy clothing, and it's like no.
Let's make them wear a bathing suit, because that's what mages would wear. Sorry, I'm like so for that.
Yeah.
I play Monster Hunter, and like, that's actually, I played that with my ex-boyfriend, and when we were playing it, he was like, this is like my favorite game, it's so cool, look at all the armor you can get. I'm like, what armor? This
Yeah.
is like a little loincloth, and then like my entire leg and thigh is showing, and I'm wearing little slip-ons, but apparently that's giving me like 150 defense. Like I was
Yeah.
like, where does, what? Like, didn't make sense.
So-
and I'm like,
Yeah.
Is there adequate representation of women in games?
No, I think Dana and Yelena have covered it pretty well. I think there are some places where they've done well, maybe by accident.
Like genres or games specifically?
I'm thinking of specific games, and I'm only thinking of this because it came up so much when Game of Thrones like got a TV show and everything like that, where people talked about it a lot, especially women, because there's just so many female characters, they couldn't be reduced to stereotypes. There was just too many of them.
Too many
So-
white female characters.
It's debatable. In the books, like, Dorne is meant to be, I think, a little more racialized than they ended up going with on the show. The show is its own thing. That is not great. And there's obviously a lot of mistakes and, like, horrible, weird sexualization stuff of small, like, young women in the books. But there were so many women that, like, women actually felt that they could connect better with the characters just because there was probably someone who was similar to them. And I think Overwatch is kind of the same way. I don't want to say they accidentally stumbled into good representation, because it's still got a lot of problems, I think. But I think it's had such, compared to other first-person shooters, it's had such a good response among female gamers because there's so many different types of women too. There's like an autistic woman that they can identify with, there's a gay woman, there's like
I would argue there's multiple gay women.
Well, I mean, Jeff
Confirmed.
Kaplan said, like, who
Confirmed.
knows, next time you log in, who will be gay? And I'm going to be like, it's Diva. She's gay. With Sombra.
Zarya's gay.
I
Sorry.
personally believe they're all gay, but
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that that's, like,
I need to play this game more.
yeah. It's just like, we're like, Overwatch. Yeah.
And you said like you connected and people connected with Game of Thrones and you connected with Overwatch because of the representation and people can identify with. Whereas we're seeing the data, everybody shows more women are playing games than ever before. Half of everyone who plays games is women.
Yeah.
And if we aren't giving those women, specifically younger women, representations of themselves in games, that's not gonna be encouraging. It's not gonna be like empowering. It's gonna be discouraging. They're gonna feel like they can't be powerful. They can't kick ass, and only the men can.
Well, that's just the thing, and like you hit on it with women often being like the mages or healers or whatever in certain genres of games is like there are all sorts of different power fantasy. You can be like Nathan Drake, but you could be also more like Link from Zelda. Like you can be I almost said like a Twinkie elf or like a big beefy dude or whatever. And Overwatch was really good at hitting that point where you could be like a giant meat shield like Reinhardt or like Diva, or you could be a healer like Lucio or like Mercy.
Zarya could pop my head off my body with her 2 fingers.
I would pay money to watch Zarya like crush a watermelon with her thighs.
yes.
Yeah.
Drums. Like,
Everyone in Overwatch is gay, and we're all gay for Overwatch.
Yeah, like just female representation that was great, and also the POC representation, especially like in the female characters.
Yeah.
Like an Asian female character that isn't like okay, like she looks tiny, but she's like controlling this giant mecha thing that like does a shit ton of damage, and that just makes me
Yeah. Or the fact that Mei is a scientist, which is sort of a stereotype for a lot of Asian women, but she's a climatologist, which we wouldn't really necessarily think of. And her voice actor is also a scientist.
Yeah. She's precious.
And she's yeah.
So this is turning into the Overwatch appreciation episode.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is like if you have enough options, like more power fantasies for women are good. And I know that men say like, oh well, men are sexualized too, and that's the same thing. But it's not really, because men want to be strong and they also want their women to be sexy.
Yeah.
When you talk to women, they're like the amount of women that actually want like giant beefy men, I think is fairly small. Like I don't think that's
Thank God.
I mean, like, not that I don't mind giant beefy men, but I also don't mind if the game doesn't have it. That's
Exactly.
the thing.
Yeah, and a lot of games I think don't like like no one would describe Link as a giant beefy elf. Like that's just not how he is.
He's a precious
But,
baby
or
boy.
see, like I like games that are realistic in that sense. Like if you have a guy that is or a guy character that's very beefy, he's gonna be strong.
Mhm.
If you have a girl that's really slender, she may not be as strong as him, but she's gonna be quicker than him. She's gonna have the agility and all that. And I like games that are accurate to that.
Mhm.
Like it's not like you have some slender character, but they can like lift a tank unless they have like a superpower or something.
Yeah.
And that's why and you just get this like little whimsy little guy, and suddenly he can make his strength like 110 just by normal gameplay. It's like how about you maybe make him look stronger? If a female's gonna get that strong, give her muscles. Like women with muscles is not a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like and it's
And
we'll
they
look down on that.
exist.
They exist, and I have friends, and they're beautiful, and it's just like I don't know. Women should be proud of that. They shouldn't just go towards that ideal slender that ideal slender body type, and they should want to make it if they want to gain muscle and be powerful and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's okay for guys to do that, but not a lot of female characters in games specifically, and even in the real world, do that. So.
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I do kind of want to give Final Fantasy a shout out because I feel like consistently as a series they've done a really good job of having like super femme women but also super femme men in all of their games. Like Final Fantasy 14, if a girl puts on a loincloth piece of armor and a guy puts on the loincloth piece of armor, it's a loincloth for both of them. Like she's wearing a tiny Speedo and he's wearing a tiny Speedo. If it's just like a very tiny like leather breastplate, it's the same on both of them. So it's really they sort of, I don't want to say necessarily that it's a subversion because I think it's just a different way of making games that they do in Japan, and Final Fantasy does have like a super distinct style that they go with a lot. But and then there was the comment I made earlier with Lucas where I argued that Mifa, is this a spoiler for Breath of the Wild for anyone?
I've never
I
played
did
it,
not
and I
own a Switch, so
Yeah, same. I've
Okay.
owned one for a long time, so.
Where the whole deal is like Link gets a special piece of armor made for him by Mifa and it fits him perfectly, but it also would have fit Zelda perfectly. like they were the same size. So I thought that was kind of a neat, if unintended, sort of
Right.
nod to gender equality in like the gameplay sense in terms of armor, but also in the sense that like you could interpret the scene multiple ways, which is cool.
I have my own issues with Breath of the Wild's gender equality, or lack thereof. But I want to talk about a point you brought up about there being men who critique games for sexualizing men, and I think it's a very important distinction to make that we are developing games in a social context where women are objectified more than men, where women face way more scrutiny on their appearance and judgments based on their appearance than men. So if it was an even playing field and we were just living in the world of video games, sure, men get sexualized, women get sexualized, but the fact that women are sexualized more than men in the context of a world where that grossly affects one sex more than another is a bit of an issue. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Like, yeah, there are guys that are sexualized. Like, there are guys that may have insecurities, but that kind of pales in comparison to like what women have to go through. Like, we have to go through like the constant like media just hitting us with like all of these like good-looking women that are like super thin and like ideal. There's also the whole issue of just catcalling in general because guys think it's okay to sexualize women because of what they perceive in the media and things like that. So I do feel like that argument is not valid at the moment.
I know it's a bit of like a delicate subject
Yeah.
for very good reasons, and that I feel like this contributes to rape culture in a huge way.
Yeah.
And a statistic I found from Stats Canada very recently, which blew my mind, was in Ontario, women are 11 times more likely to be victims of sexual assault than men.
Sounds about right.
And I am totally confident that female representation in games and media in general is a contributor to that.
Yeah.
So I was actually, well, what you said, how you said, like, it's not like as irrelevant right now. I
Yeah.
agree with you in some ways, but at the same time I don't, because I've seen a lot of men who struggle with the whole body issue as well, because they're supposed to be that tough, masculine person, and if you're not,
Masculinity is a prison.
exactly. And like I agree that that's on the same level. I believe that is on the same level with women who are supposed to be skinny
Mhm.
and have big boobs and all that stuff. And it's projected through games. Men are overly muscleized. Muscleized, is that a word?
Sure.
Yeah,
It is.
muscleized. I make it now.
It is
And
now.
and women are overly skinny with waists that are like the size of like my wrist or something.
Yeah.
So
Widowmaker's pose in every
Oh my god!
frame
Whoa.
of Overwatch would actually break in a real woman's back.
Yeah.
That is true.
I will wholeheartedly
On the other
agree
hand,
with
I
that.
do have a number of tracer plays of the game where I stick something to Widowmaker and then just stand there until she blows up because I'm staring at her, which is a problem. They're like, oh, nice one, dude. I'm like,
Just
I'm
on
sorry.
Dana's point though, like to that perspective, I totally agree with, because like I'm kind of watching it with my brother right now because like he's been working out, which is good for him. Like he's happy working out. He's not forcing himself to do it just cause, but like he's starting to see himself as like, oh, I'm fat. And I don't know if any of you
he's
have
not
seen my
fat.
brother. Like he is not fat, and it upsets me so much because I'm like, you gotta love yourself, man. You're a good-looking kid. You've been always like he's been like getting so much attention. Like even when he was a chubby little kid, and like he didn't mind himself that much back then. And now that I'm seeing him grow up and be like, I have to get abs, and I'm like, but you have people that don't care about your abs. Like it's okay if you want to get them, just don't be so hard on yourself if that doesn't happen.
Games
Yeah.
definitely probably contributed.
Yeah, they probably do. Not gonna lie, also just media in general, but yeah, definitely
Yeah.
that.
so yeah, that brings up one of the concerns that I have, which is that people talk about these characters like they have agency, but they're actually creations of the designer or the writer or the producer of the show, and that's a big problem.
Who are most often in games male.
Exactly, yeah. Or like in TV, you know, the higher up you go, the more men you're going to find in general. Comedy shows very rarely have women in the writing room, that sort of thing. And it happens on both sides. Like I'll say that people argue that sexualization is okay because like the woman is empowered by it. Well, she's a character. She's not empowered by anything because she's not real. But then on the other hand, you know, there's some sort of feedback, like if I say that I didn't really like Pacific Rim because I thought that Macklemore was kind of like passive or whatever, people are like, well, don't you think that she's an empowering character because of these reasons and she did her own thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, she's not real. like, she's an example, yeah, of something that media can do right or do wrong, but it's not, I'm not empowered by or not empowered by a character specifically, but rather the intention of the creator in making it, or the impact that the creation has in society when it lands, not necessarily the intention of the creator, because that can be.
To branch from that though, it's like you understand that
Mhm.
because of like where you've been, what you've been through, all that sort of stuff. And when you think of the target audience for a lot of these gaming companies and these games, they're young girls and men, and they will put themselves into these characters.
Mhm.
And so like this is a big reason why you want to have like, for especially for me, what I want to see is I want to see these female characters having empowerment and having that, because if these young women are putting themselves into that character and believing that that character is them, or like they can be that, then that is something that could help shape our future, because then we'll have more women kind of, you know, taking a stand and doing stuff, and not thinking that because a few guys in a desk in some company said that they don't want women around doesn't mean that they can't be in that room too.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation.
like
Wonder Woman being such a big hit, is it because it's a huge female lead, or is it because that it was a woman director? Like you can't, I think you can't have good representation without having the people being represented in the back end.
The perspectives are what I'm saying, people.
That's true.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about games, I think specifically, is that they have a beta period. In a lot of games do. So this is a Warcraft anecdote, but way back when Mists of Pandaria came out, me and a couple of my friends were in the beta, and there was a quest giver right at the beginning of the Panda Zone, where if you were a female panda, he said like, "Hey, gorgeous, what's going on?" And if you were a male panda, he's like, "You look strong, don't you?" or something like that, like something really obvious. And so in the PTR forums, my friend said like, maybe make this line a little bit like more equal. Like, why doesn't he just say the same thing to both characters? Like, it doesn't really make sense to have it different. And she got like totally reamed apart twice. Once for making the post in the first place, but then the second time when they actually implemented the change, and they were like, "Well, you bullied the designers into doing this." It's like, that's what the beta period's for. It's for taking feedback from your players and deciding whether or not it makes it a better game. In this case, Blizzard, a huge company, said, this probably makes it a better game, so that's what they made the change for. Like,
And Blizzard obviously didn't have anyone writing that game with that perspective who would see an issue with treating the female character differently than the male character in a very sexualized way. And having their fans who have that perspective, like your friend, give them that feedback. Like they did the same thing when Overwatch came out with Tracer's pose. And they totally fudged that and made it worse, but they were still open to it, kind of.
yeah. And it was the same deal. I think the person who made that critique
Got ripped apart.
Yeah, when the change happened. And it's like, well, like, there's feedback forms and beta periods and all these things. Like, games change all the time. It's not ruining the creator's vision to suggest a change that they decide to implement. Like,
I have
it's
a
not...
question though. Where's the people that were reading apart the girl that posted that, were they male and female, or
A bit of both.
I would wager mostly male.
But and that's
Yeah.
what I don't understand is why would they think that something like that would bother them, when if they play as a male, they're gonna get that response like, "Oh, you're strong," and they
Yeah.
play the game. And then if they played a female, they get, "Oh, you're strong." How does that affect them?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry that really
It doesn't...
ruined your entire day.
And that's why they're mad, I guess.
How dare you not change it so that my day can,
Yeah.
be normal? Like, it's what? Like, it's just, I don't know.
A lot of these critiques of women who critique games, and actually anyone who critiques games, are completely unfounded and silly.
It's like it's hard enough being a woman in the I don't want to say normal, because it's not like gaming is not normal, because in my life it is.
It should be.
But it should be normal.
Yeah.
But it's like, outside of the gaming community, even as a woman, I still, like, again, we can't really walk out downtown Brantford without feeling like looking over our shoulders and all that stuff. And if you can't, I can't do that normally in my own neighborhood, but I also can't do it now in my community. And that's where it's like, I would like to have a place where I can go and I can feel safe. And so Discord's really helped me with that. Like, I've seen the communities of that. Like, I'm in the one I believe you helped me with, which is, it's like a lot of women and female gamers and designers and everything, and they've all come together in a little community. And it's like stuff like that really kind of opens it up and makes you feel more welcome. Because like, we not only have to do this daily struggle that I've struggled with for my whole life, because I've had friends affected by men who are horrible people, but like, it's just like you learn to cope with it. And it's like, now that I've gotten into gaming, I want this to be fun, and I don't want to cope with it anymore. I want to actually do something, and it needs to stop. And that's why that's why I'm talking here. Yay!
That's a good example though. Like Discord and Twitter, I think have been really good in connecting with female
Yeah.
content creators to be like, we're all in this together, and we've all had like crappy experiences at conventions where like men decide to explain the lore of Warcraft to you, and I'm like, dude, I've been playing it for like
Well,
15
actually.
years. Yeah.
But the thing is to point out as well that like if anything, getting more involved with the gaming community has also shown me that there are a lot of males specifically that are good and nice. One right over here. But like I would say almost everyone in my game design class has made me feel safe and not attacked at any point. I haven't really done a lot heavy on the gaming with them, but I would assume that they would have enough respect and they've learned enough. But like they've really opened my eyes up to. Okay.
I'm just.
But they've really opened up my eyes to the fact that there are gamers out there who aren't the ones that I dealt with when I played Call of Duty and when I randomly went onto that. So I'm kind of coming out of my shell in that sense where I'm like taking a few tentative steps, you know, into the weird courtyard thing in World of Warcraft and trying to get over my fear of being called the see you next Tuesday and saying that I might even like in that Mercy episode, like how they were joking about raping her.
Yeah.
Like that's a fear of mine. Like,
Yeah.
But you know, I'd love to get that shouted at me while I'm trying to enjoy a game. But yeah, so I'm just saying there are good people out there. I don't want this to be like a complete hate on men, or it's not a hate on men thing, but like
Oh, mine is.
no, oh man.
So we've talked a bit about how representation in games themselves is really lacking. In the industry, as I mentioned before, according to the IGDA in 2015-ish, around 76% of all the people working in the industry were male. 76% is a lot of people. It's a lot of men.
Yeah.
It's a lot of guys. A lot of studios that are just guys. That's why we get games with poor representation. So I know a lot of us are very new to the industry. I know I am. I know Dana and y'all are. Some of the experiences working in games, so.
Contract at best.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel games as an industry could be more accessible to women? And what would you like to see changing in terms of how the industry treats women? I'll start with you, Yana.
Well, one thing that I know that you've always ranted about was like during like game conferences, just have women show up, or, like have women on stage instead of just dudes. Like I know that you've always ranted about how Nintendo never has a female show up on stage.
Can I? I've watched a Nintendo live stream every year for the past 6 years. Hours and hours of Nintendo talking about games. They've never, ever had a woman on stage to talk about a game. Xbox has had 4, I know for sure. I don't think PlayStation's had any, and Ubisoft had Aisha Tyler host their show, which is a black woman. There you go. Like, wow, like Ubisoft, great work there.
Yeah.
And if we're only seeing men making games, we're only gonna think men make games.
Like,
So sorry, go on.
like yeah, like just have more women come onto the main stage and actually talk about their game. Like I kind of had just a small issue with the Xbox conference because it was only like male developers that were coming up there to talk about their games. Like yeah, there were females there, but like they were kind of off to the side because there was like at one point there were 2 females who were like demoing the game, and there was that one chick, I forgot which conference, but they would always like cut over to her, but she was just more of like a little
the
interviewer.
PC Gamer show.
Yeah.
They had her up on the balcony talking about.
Yeah, like up in a balcony, totally away from the main event. Like that's, yeah. Like if we just that's one step that would definitely like just show people, not just females in general, that hey, girls are in this industry too. Like I just feel like just going into that public front would be a really good first step.
Yeah. Do you guys?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you guys remember last year? I think where a couple of dudes were kicked out of GDC for shit talking women in front of the women who organized GDC.
Oh no!
I would like to be there.
Yeah, they called her a bitch, and so she's like, "Well, I'm actually the co-organizer, and your passes are revoked."
Oh,
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I mean, like that perception is not.
Oh, or even,
Yeah.
well, what about the one, so to say, like, they're not really perceiving women as much, but what about, I don't know exactly what it was, I know it was a gaming event, but the people who went to advertise it and they created the promotional video for it, it was just a video of them looking at all the females in the thing. Like, it was just videotaping all the women and then, like, zooming in on a lot of these girls that were either trying to play games or enjoying
Oh,
their time.
the League of Legends?
I don't know
No,
what it was.
it was BlizzCon.
Was
it was
it?
BlizzCon.
And
when
it was
they
just
had
very
this-
awkward, and it was very, like, it kind of came across like this, whoever was filming it was just creepily filming all these women.
Yeah, it
It's
was
like,
last
yeah,
BlizzCon.
and that's what I mean. It's like, I understand you're trying to say that, like, there are more women in the gaming community here. Like, they're definitely more prominent there, but it's just like, at the same time, it shouldn't be some crazy oddity that you have to get footage of in order for it to be like.
None of those women were consenting to being recorded.
Exactly. Yeah.
Having
That's another thing. Yeah. There's
having
no
their
consent.
video put on Blizzard's main stage and Twitch and stuff.
Yeah.
And apparently it's awkward too. I didn't see the actual full thing, but there's some women who are kind of like, oh, you're filming me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if they actually do that, but like, yeah, like
Talking about E3, the first time, like, I remember it was 2 E3s ago, I think, when Halo 5 was being talked about, and this was the first time on Microsoft stage, they were like, and now please welcome to the stage, head of 343 Industries, Bonnie Ross. And I was like, Bonnie? And then this woman walks out, and I'm like, holy shit! This woman's in charge of Halo. This woman's in charge of Halo, the first-person shooter. She got out. She had her blazer on and graphic tee.
Nice.
I didn't give a shit. Because this woman got on the stage and talked about Halo 5, which was a multi-million-dollar extravaganza, and she was probably the most competent, less nervous, less twitchy person there, because she probably had to work her ass off to become head of the biggest video game studio in North America. Like,
Yeah.
that was the first one I was like, what is happening? That was probably the most impactful part of that convention, and it shouldn't be. Because when having a woman on your stage is the coolest thing that happened. You're making a lot of shitty games.
Yeah. I can agree
Oh.
with that, yeah.
Having Aisha Tyler host Ubisoft was so cool too, because, oh my god. It was go ahead.
This isn't games specifically, but like Silicon Valley on HBO hosts fun at like Silicon Valley, like in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And they filmed at TechCrunch Disrupt, which is like a big entrepreneurial or what the frick are like app makers called? It's like a startup. Like, it's a startup place where they can meet venture capitalists to get
Oh,
funding.
okay.
Oh, okay.
And people were critiquing Mike Judge, who's like the producer, about like the lack of women in the audience. He's like, literally, this was filmed at the real TechCrunch. Like, the stage stuff is all fake because for the TV show, but like the audience stuff is what we just filmed when we were really there. Like, we can't like Photoshop more women in if you don't have women in your thing to begin with. And I was like, whoa. Like, when people are looking at TV and being like, this is unrealistic, and they're like, we literally filmed this in real life. Like,
and that's another thing too. Like, as much as I want women to be represented in everything, if it is a lot of men who have maybe made this amazing game or something, then like by all means they should be the ones to present it. But it's just like, again, there's so many women who have these ideas and are actually on the writing team, or they're on the design team, or they're on this team that aren't getting the highlight. So like there's a small bit of gray area where there are a lot of male designers who are coming up with fantastic ideas, and you can't step over them just
Yeah.
because you want
Yeah.
a woman represented.
No one's saying
And
guys should stop making games, right?
Yeah.
We're just saying that we want to see, like, visually, like, see just at
Women,
least
yeah.
like, more women that are actually making these games. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I can't name 10 female developers, like, off the top of my head. I can't do it.
Off the top of my head, I can't name any except for
probably-
my
could, but I think of
Tim
Tim
Hortons card game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably could, but I know, like, again, I know a lot of indie game developers through Twitter
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
And that's why I think no one's saying, oh, a lot of the fight back against this is like, oh, you're trying to take away jobs and stuff like that. No, we're just like, more of the jobs are going to go to women. Like, it's a growing industry.
Yeah.
All those new jobs should go to women like the women in our program.
Mhm.
We need to get more women in there. And there's definitely, as it becomes more accessible, like, anyone can download Unity and Game Maker and start making games. And as soon as we start getting that out there, it just happens that all of the people doing that are men. Like, Toby Fox and Eric Barone and all these guys making huge indie games.
And I mean, maybe it was you I was talking about, but when they did like blind hiring for orchestras, because orchestras had a massive, like, mostly men problem as well, they set up a screen and they would have people play like blindly, so they wouldn't know who was playing. And then eventually they were still having the same problem. They had to put a carpet down because people could recognize the footsteps of women, and still subconsciously be judging the performance on the basis of gender.
Oh,
Or like the
whoa.
same resume with a female name and a male name, or like a racialized name and a non-racialized name, getting the exact same resume. Yeah.
Oh.
And if
Like-
it's like a racialized female name, fucking forget it.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
but it's the exact same resume.
yeah.
90% of the time, it'll get tossed out if they think it's a woman.
Like,
And so it's not necessarily like this forced diversity thing where unqualified women are getting, like, there's probably women out there with amazing game ideas that just aren't getting the funding or the focus or the credit or whatever. Yeah.
Like, I honestly have so much experience with this whole racialized thing because not only am I a mixed kid, but I have a totally foreign name. And, like, I just remember, like, being that, like, just one odd kid out because, like, especially in elementary school, I went to a Catholic elementary school, and most of the people's names there were, like, religious, like, Bible names, right?
Patrick, Stephen, John, Matt.
Yeah, and, like,
Emily.
not to say that there
Yeah,
weren't,
that's a
like,
religious
people
name.
of color in my elementary school per se, but, like, because I had a foreign name, like, you could tell the exact moment when the supply teachers are, like, when I went into the next grade, like, you could tell when my name was coming up because they're just, like, they would look down at the page and there's just this awkward pause, and they're like, and it's, like, I would have to be the one to correct them before they would say my name wrong, because, like, I remember because like I did have experience with bullying, unfortunately, as a kid, and one of the things that I got picked on for was my foreign name.
Right.
And like it got so bad to the point where at one point I wanted to change my name into like an English name,
Mhm.
but like I'm so glad that never happened because like I love my name now. Like,
A lot of people don't know this because a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but Neil Druckmann consulted Anita Sarkeesian on The Last of Us when writing the characters, and he single-handedly mentions her for being the reason Ellie and Tess, the two most compelling, well-written women in the past 10 years of games, came to be the way they were because he talked to Anita Sarkeesian while making them.
nice.
Wow.
Nice.
When women are in the industry, games are better.
Okay, for the original Star Wars trilogy, think of every scene that you actually love. George Lucas's wife did it. She added in all of the stuff that made Princess Leia really cool, Han Solo kind of like idiot, like every human like redeeming feature that the prequels were lacking was George Lucas's ex-wife saying she did almost all of the editing uncredited on the film, like the slicing of the films and stuff like that. And so she had like
Bless
a lot
her
of
soul.
a lot of opportunities to add
She's
this
getting
stuff in.
credit now.
Yeah. Well, once they divorced, I think she was able to like speak a little more freely about a lot of this.
That's wild.
But
That's crazy.
yeah, it's that's exactly what it is. Is like they bring a perspective to storytelling and I think the racialized aspect is actually important to talk about, and I'm glad that you're able to bring it to the table because I'm not even sure that it's a double. Like sometimes I think it's a multiplier to add on like race and gender, or homophobia and gender, or disability and gender, or disability, race and gender. Like
Yeah.
it just becomes so much to deal with.
At least in my experience, it's been hard to cope with the fact that I'm half white and half Asian because it's like, where is my privilege, right? And like for my case, anyways, I'm passing white. Like people will not look at me and be like, "Oh, she's Asian." They'll probably think that I'm like some white like white person. But like when Assassin's Creed 3 came out, like I had no idea that Connor was actually half native and half white. So when I found out about that in the game, like it blew my mind because it's like, this is a character that I can relate to. This is somebody like me who is struggling with their identity because they are part of both a minority, like a represented minority and a represented majority. Like, where is your line? And like, even though Connor was not passing white, like he still struggled with that, which I don't think a lot of people realize playing the game, but that was something that really hit me hard playing that game. So
I know one of my good friends is Mexican, and when Sombra came out in Overwatch, she was like I've never seen someone like me using like actual Mexican slang as opposed to like Spanish-ish kind of like
stereotype of like
yeah,
And-
like when like you just randomly throw in a word from your language. Like, no, it's a lot more complex than that, because when you're learning another language, like sometimes you'll just forget what the word is in that language, but you'll remember it in your own language, and then you'll like look at people and be like, "What's this word?" And people look at you like, "We don't know."
yeah.
And then you have to start describing it, and I feel like if we could move more towards that, not just in games but in media in general, like I feel like a lot more people would be able to connect to that.
Yeah, because she was saying like this sort of dry, sarcastic, self-deprecating attitude that Summer has is extremely common in families like hers. So she was like, you know, like my family's pet name for me was basically like the equivalent of fat ass, but it was like friendly, like it was.
Yeah.
She's like, and it just doesn't really translate in the same way, but having a character like that sort of reflected the stuff I could see in my own family was really new and cool.
It's really important.
And it was
I
really
feel.
important to her. Like I'm not even sure she's logged into Overwatch in like the past whatever, but she'll always be like, Sombra! And I'm like, yes, Sombra!
Specifically, a lot of cultures that aren't represented in games because people don't work at the studios who are from those cultures are often misrepresented too. And I always think back to Uncharted 3. I play every game with subtitles on, right? And in Uncharted 3, you go to the Arabia of the Sands, or the Atlantis of the Sands, or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Middle Eastern people come in on horseback, and all their dialogue is speaking Arabic, written in parentheses. And Nathan Drake will say something, and it's speaking Arabic in parentheses. You know, if you had one Arab person working at that studio, they'd be like, "This is the word you use," and they put it in.
Right.
Yeah. And just none of the games that actually have Arab culture in them, like every Call of Duty game where they go to the Middle East and kill brown people, actually use the right Arab text or language.
Oh my God.
And because, to be honest, a lot of the people playing it who don't know, they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And
Like on my point, like even though I am part white, like the white part of me is actually Serbian, and like a lot of times because of like the Yugoslav wars that ended up happening, we ended up getting stuck onto the stereotype of like, oh, we're the bad guys. And so every single time, like I like, especially in like movies or TV shows where I hear them use like a Serbian name, and I'm like, oh great, he's a bad guy, and like it's just happened so much in like, not just in video games, but in media in general, that it just frustrates me so much because it's like we're not all like this, but you're telling people to see us like this. And that's why in one of the GTA games there's a character, like they never specify what kind of Slavic he is, and so like a lot of people came up with a theory like, oh, maybe he's like Serbian or Croatian or Russian, but like they never specified it, which I actually appreciated for once, because it's like you're not looking at this dude and like judging him based on his culture. You're looking at him as a character who just happens to have this background attached to him. So
yeah, the complexity of ethnicity, I think, is something that I don't want to say it doesn't come up as much in the States but in Canada, but it's a much bigger issue or discussion in Europe, I think, than it is here. Like, for example, I don't think the perception, like I think people in North America tend to perceive Jewish people as white. Like, white, I mean, which is kind of true, but in terms of like how historically the ethnicity has been treated, completely not. And in Europe especially, anti-Semitism continues to be, or in parts like Mexico, Montreal, it continues to be like a huge problem. And so I think like maybe sometimes we're lacking the kind of nuance of things that you would notice, like if someone is Serbian or Bosnian or whatever, because of your history with the Yugoslavian conflicts, like you know what sort of shorthand they're using that ethnicity for.
And it just really frustrates me because it's like we're not all like this. Like this is like we're not all like crooks. We're not all against the system or whatever. Like some of us like probably wouldn't even advocate for this or whatever. But it's just like it's just how we're represented in media. Like a lot of times like even just the offhand mention of like, oh, this guy that we're after is a Serbian, and it's like, well, great. Like especially I don't know why I've been noticing this recently, but like in a lot of media that I've been watching up as of late, like they've been mentioning Serbian gangs a lot, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I've never heard about this, and I've been like, I have a Serbian community that I used to go to regularly, and this just never happens to us. Like this is not something that comes up in conversation that often, if at all. So it's like to see this, it's like this is not who we are. Like
The
just
same-
diverse. Make us more diverse in a bit, but
Yeah, this a similar dialogue I think happened in the UK after a mosque was attacked, where people were like extremists were attracted to this mosque, and people who attended it were like, I don't think so. Like it's just a mosque where people go to worship. Like it's a weird narrative that you're using to try and justify
Yeah.
this person being like tortured or killed or whatever in the media, the story that you're trying to tell.
So dipped into a little bit of racial politics there, but
Yeah.
actually not even racial politics, just racial representation in games.
Yeah.
That's all I have in terms of questions. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah, no, thank you. This was awesome.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Yana.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We would like to turn this into more of a series with hopefully more women coming into the program next year. Definitely having people come back talking about different things. Because as a cisgender straight white man, I don't have any of these perspectives. And the only way we can share the perspectives is by getting them from the people who have those experiences, those valuable life lessons to illustrate the clear issues with games and media in general, I would say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Games are hard. Like, share, subscribe. Bye.
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 Cool.
Peace.
Yay! Excellent. So,
I just looked at the thing like